Hi, welcome to your family dog. Today, Julie Fudge Smith and I are talking about a topic that comes up all the time in dog training lessons, which is, should I let my dog get on the furniture? And my answer is always, do you want your dog on the furniture? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And interestingly enough, we have different answers in our own households. So, Julie, why don't you tell us how you answer the question, should I let my dog on my furniture? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's so much guilt about it. People put so much pressure on families about that. It's crazy. Mhm. Yep. No. Take over the world. Yes. No, I'm not hearing anything. It's good on my end. I hope you keep the ah. Oh, I'm so sorry. You want me to affect my volume? Is that in any way? Okay. Mhm. Yeah. And that comes up a lot of times, interestingly enough, with couples for me, where they'll say like, "Oh, we all get in bed at night and life is good," and then in the middle of the night, my husband gets up to go to the bathroom, but then Buster won't let him get back on the bed. Yeah, problem. That's one we need to address. So, Buster doesn't get to decide that at 3 a.m. it's just us two now. Forget it. He's out of here. Um, mm-hmm. That's when you say, we're not marriage counselors, but that could be a problem. Yeah. Hmm. And I think invitation is a really important piece that most people don't do. So when you have the idea of that a dog has to be invited, you've solved almost all of the problems with having dogs on furniture, which are, you have guests come over and your dog is leaping up to sit next to them and they would prefer not to. Well, if the dog has to wait to be invited, we've solved that problem. Or you have a new baby and you've just come home from the hospital and you'd really like the poodle not to be licking the baby's face. Well, if the dog has to be invited up, we're not having to worry about that as much. So the invitation piece, I think, is the part that most families don't naturally think of. Mm-hmm. Mhm. And what is your cue for asking them to get down? Oh, it's a fancy cue. A fancy cue at your house. So in my house, I grew up where dogs were never allowed on furniture. And then when I was getting dogs as an adult, I was getting relatively big dogs. And I also, this is our dirty little secret, have a husband who's not as big of a dog fan as I am. Shocking, I know. So our compromise really was the dogs weren't on the furniture. But I've got to tell you, the dog I currently have would dearly love to be on the furniture, and honestly, I would love it too. But I'm not changing the rule for this dog. We're just sort of leaving it where it is. I'm not convinced, though, that the next dog won't find itself curled up on my lap because now I'm not raising little kids and I'm not in the chaotic household. We'll have to sort of look at some of that. So it depends on what works best for your house. There isn't a right or wrong answer. There are also dogs who are allowed on some furniture. That's a little bit trickier because we sometimes have to decide very clearly what those criteria are. Um, but which, hmm, yes, yes, yes. And having that dog bed in the room where you hang out. So a lovely comfy dog bed that's in the kitchen when you're hanging out in the living room is not actually more appealing to the dog. They want to be where you are. That actually reminds me a little bit of years ago. I had a golden retriever, and when she got older, she started losing her hearing a little bit. And when I would come home, I would occasionally find an old golden retriever sleeping on my couch. And we would both pretend that that hadn't occurred. So I would busily look around in other places and make enough vibration and noise, and she would wake up and, oh, suddenly get off the couch. And then it would be like, oh, hello. Now, as a younger dog, I would have corrected that and prevented that. But by the time she was old and it was comfy and she wasn't hurting anything, we just pretended it hadn't happened. It was our little secret. Poor little Midas. She was like, oh my goodness, you're here. You caught me with my curlers still in. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Ooh. Right. Yes. Mhm. Right. And what the appropriate behavior is while they're on there, because just this morning we did an appointment, and this was this beautiful house with a little breakfast nook table with high stool chairs. So sit down on the chairs, and this American Eskimo mix leaps up onto another chair right beside me, and he is not happy that I'm in his house. So I'm like, oh, fabulous. And then he got on the table and started walking across it. And the owner was appalled. She was like, he's never gotten on the table before. Now he sits in that chair when I eat my breakfast, but he's never gotten on the table before. And he's like coming into the space here of me and Pam, the other trainer I was with, and he's just like, you're in my house. And it's like, huh, look at you. So the fact that he was allowed on the chair made it much easier for him to make that next step over onto, here I am standing on the table telling you about, I would prefer you didn't come to my home. Whereas the other three dogs in the house were all using the ground, and they were all delighted we were in the home. So it was unfortunate who made these choices. But in that case, he was on the table deliberately. He was taking space, and the owner really needed to see that he needs to be invited up and invited down, kind of thing, because he pushes his boundaries a little bit more than the other three who were, charming and delighted that we were visiting. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mhm. Right. Indeed. Because that's what you do. One thing to think about with the furniture is that I think we want to look at dogs earning their privileges. So it's harder to go back to no dogs on the furniture than it is to gradually say, okay, now you've earned the right to be on the furniture, or you've earned the right to sleep on the bed, or any of these other things. So when you bring a new dog in, having a discussion with everyone who lives in the house of what are the rules and getting some agreement, because it's really not helpful to the dog if we have different rules depending on who happens to be in the room. That's very confusing. But then starting slow and working up to, does this dog never mark in the house? Does this dog not chew anything? Does this dog have nice manners? Does this dog not, get into guest space? Well, then okay, we can probably let him up onto the furniture. These kinds of things. But if there's like, well, he's usually good. Usually good is not yet ready to have those privileges. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Yes. Right. Yes, and it's helpful if your dog has some good sense of body awareness for their own body and for yours. And I mean, like, if we're just going to stereotype by breed, labs tend to be a little oblivious about where their body ends and yours begins. But I had a client a couple years ago who had an abdominal surgery, and her Bichon always sat on a chair with her. I mean, she had an easy chair, and the dog would sit with her. But this dog had no body awareness and was really hurting the lady. And so she was like, I just need her to not be on the chair with me. Well, from the dog's perspective, all of a sudden she'd been cut off from her comfort, her space, where she wanted to be, because she didn't have an invitation up or an invitation down. And she was so completely clueless. I mean, she was like, I'm just going to be right here on your stomach. And he was like, ah, ha, no. so so really being conscious of, I mean, we can't predict everything that's going to happen in the next 10 years, but if you had a sprained ankle, could you be comfortable on this piece of furniture with this dog? If not, then let's think about what we could train to make that more comfortable, or had a surgery, or had, I don't know, a migraine, just life. How can we make things work for you and for your dog when you're not in a perfect situation? Yeah, you were disabled quite a while. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. It's very restorative. Right. Hmm. Right. And the baby gate prevents them from making a poor choice that they don't know is a poor choice. So then they don't have the moment of friction where you'd fuss, or, get off the bed, ow, ow. So we prevented that moment, which is even more upsetting than the, oh no, I'm on the other side of the gate feeling. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Yes. Well, I think that you lose the privilege of being on the bed. And then in different households, that answer is different ways. So I have had clients use a baby gate and put the dog in a walk-in closet. So again, the dog is in the room but not in the room. You know, like here you are, we're together, we've got it. I've had clients put dog in another room. I've had clients use a tether with a to a tether to the foot of their bed with a dog bed right there, so that if the dog jumps on the bed, they'll feel it and they can redirect the dog, but the dog can't go mark all around the house. This one was a big marker, the one I'm thinking of. Whatever kind of tool you're using. With a tether, of course, we do want to be careful. We wouldn't ever want a dog to get tangled. So you do need to be looking at your equipment and your layout for anything like that. But if a dog is rehearsing a behavior that you don't like, practice makes perfect. So if you're going to growl when someone gets up in the middle of the night and not let that person back in bed, you can't have that situation. What change are we going to make? Yeah. Yeah, crate's are great. And we ideally should have every dog like having their crate. And a lot of dogs, once they grow through adolescence, never use their crate again. But it could be really valuable to keep using it from time to time so that it isn't a penalty. It's just like, yeah, this is one other nice place I have to go. It's really all about choices. What's another key too? Yes. Hmm. Right. The Hilton Gulag. Yes. Yeah, you should definitely get a trainer involved. Absolutely. Mhm. But the good news is most dogs don't have that problem. And most dogs are delighted to curl up on the couch next to you and just hang out and binge watch Netflix all you want to. So if that makes you happy and that makes your dog happy, then I have no objection to it whatsoever. I think it does.